We got double audio. All right, we're live for the third episode of Meetup Monday. This week we got Leo Alexander from Eurotek Tuning LLC and Jason Reichert of REICHERT Motorsports. How's it going, guys?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. So from now on, we'll call you JR so that we're not calling each other multiple. We don't know who's talking to who. So but,
that works. I'll take it.
So I guess we'll start off by talking about you guys, because you guys are new to Lucky Dog, and a lot of people won't know who you are. The first couple of weeks we talked to teams that have been around forever and kind of known throughout Lucky Dog, and whether it's California or Washington. So let's talk about you guys and your backgrounds and where you're located. So Leo, why don't you start?
Yeah, absolutely. So live in Las Vegas. I'm a owner of Eurotek Tuning. We're a European performance and repair shop. Got involved with racing several years ago, mainly NASA Sprint. And endurance racing is really where my passion kind of led into. And so I put together a couple cars and a couple teams, and it's just kind of expanded from there. So we've always got cars. We've always got some seats available, and we're having a great time. And soon we'll start winning, too, as we get these cars dialed in.
Cool. Awesome. JR?
Yeah, so I just started racing endurance cars, and I drive for Eurotek Racing. Before I got into endurance racing, I did mostly open racing, so I won the SCCA runoffs in the Formula Continental class. And then I won the Pacific F2000 championship twice before getting into endurance cars. And I've had an absolute blast driving in the Lucky Dog Series racing for Eurotek. It's been a really great experience.
Cool. So, and you're in Vegas as well?
Yes, I'm also in Vegas with Leo.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, so you guys first came out and raced with Lucky Dog at Buttonwillow. Why don't you, Buttonwillow this year, 2020, it's crazy that a lot of people think that we haven't raced it all this year, but we had two races. We had Laguna Seca in January, and we had Buttonwillow beginning of February. That was your first race. Why don't you tell us about the cars you brought to that race?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a TDI Jetta. We've competed in other series with the Jetta. So the Jetta is a really awesome platform. TDI puts down a ton of torque. Likes to crop dust a little bit. I try to keep that light with respect to other drivers. And so we brought that out there. And unfortunately, we didn't have the best of weekend, The car did not perform at its best in terms of power. We had a turbocharger malfunction very early on in the race, so we limped it the rest of the weekend, but we still had a great time. At one point, we were still third in our class, and we were holding on to third at the very last day. 19 laps, we saw fourth was closing in on us. Jason was in the car, Jason Reichert, that is JR, and it was an intense, and the other driver. They ended up taking a position just because we didn't have the power, and we learned a lot from what went down and what we could have gained from it. And next race, look out. Cool.
Yeah, so the Jetta, diesel Jetta, you don't see too many diesels in endurance racing. We have had one other Mercedes. So hang on one sec here. Are you guys getting good audio, or is it kind of crackly?
Mine's clear.
Yeah?
Mine sounds okay.
Okay. It's on my side then. I'll just make sure I got everything closed off here. I think I got 15 tabs open. So, yeah, so we've had one diesel Mercedes that ran before, an older one that got destroyed in a wreck. But why'd you guys choose that car? And have you been able to exploit the fuel mileage?
Well, originally the car was built on a very low budget. It was supposed to be a Lemons car. It was a spare car that I had, but I can't do anything half-ass. And so before we knew it, we had a lot more into the car. The car dominated with very little power at Lemons. And yes, then it was great gas mileage. But then, we started adding more power to the car. So as you add more power to the car, you take away fuel economy. So the economy on the car at Button Willow, at least, wasn't what it used to be, a year prior when we had raced it at Lemons. But we'll see what happens here with upcoming races. We're making some more changes to the car. I don't want to share too much information, but the car is going to improve on fuel economy a little bit.
Yeah, cool. And then you guys brought a BMW as well, an E34 to Button Willow. I can't remember. Did you guys raced it, or was it a backup car, or I can't remember.
Yeah, so that one of the things that we do with Eurotek is we also do prep and the logistics for other teams. So this was a car that another team had actually purchased from another team. It was just a very last minute put together. We transported the car over there for them, but the car did not live long, unfortunately, at this time.
Right. Okay. But you guys are building a new car.
We are. We finished an E46 spec car. We built it to spec because we do have plans on using it for NASA racing down the road. So no shortcuts, built it to spec rules. We did some testing already at Chuckwalla as well as the streets. The car did exceptionally well. Worked out some bugs, and we're looking forward to our next race.
Cool. So Chuckwalla, that's probably going to be your next Lucky Dog race.
Yes.
You guys said you were testing there. Have you raced it? Jason, you said you'd raced it before, right?
Yeah, I raced it in the Vintage Auto Racing Association, and I love that track. It's a lot of fun. It flows very well. The way I ran it was actually the opposite of the way that we're going to be racing it. So I ran it the other direction, but that track's fun either way you run it. I love that place.
What about temperature there? That's the one thing that we haven't been there with Lucky Dog, but we were there in September, but it's still going to be pretty warm, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly, the heat doesn't bother me too much. I think it doesn't bother Leo too much, especially living in Las Vegas where every day is always hot. So I feel like our team does pretty good when the temperatures are hot out there. Because we did a race at Willow Springs where the temperatures were just astronomically hot, and all of our guys did a great job staying consistent and doing their job in the car.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. How was Streets? There's kind of like this ongoing banter about doing a race at Streets. I know that other endurance racing organizations have done races at Streets. What do you guys think of that track? Do you think it's conducive to a Lucky Dog race?
Yeah, I'm not sure. The problem with Streets, in my opinion, is passing areas. There's not a lot of space to pass. You've got the front straight, and you've got a couple other areas, but it's a very short course, a lot of second gear turns. So an opportunity to pass on an endurance race might present a problem. I think I'm open to it. I think it'd be a lot of fun to do. But I think it's more realistic, Butt Willow Springs, stuff like that. Chuckwalla.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Jason, why don't we talk about a little bit? Every time I see a post on Facebook, you're driving something else. So it seemed like everybody was locked down, can't go anywhere. You got to stay at your house. And I see post from Jason. He's leaving Vegas at 4 o'clock in the morning to go somewhere. So what have you driven in this calendar year? Let's just start with that.
Gosh, well, I also race for AOA Racing, and we do races here and there. We run the World Racing League Championship, so I'm actually leaving this weekend to go drive at Roebling Road with them. Yep. But recently, I was able to actually drive a Corvette C8 for a car review video, and that car was a lot of fun to drive. Before that, I was doing me and some friends were off-roading with all the tracks being closed. That was kind of the only thing that we could all be doing. So we went off-roading with a few muscle cars, and yeah, pretty much I've been driving as much as I could with the quarantine just to stay busy, because I can't stay still. It just doesn't work for me.
Yeah. So when I was down there at the beginning of March in Vegas, met up with you guys, we were talking, racing stories and stuff, and so you got a nickname this year, right?
Oh yeah, well, I did had a small off where I ended up getting a little bit of air in a car, but so I got called Duke for a little bit, but I'm hoping that nickname kind of fades away.
No.
I think that's gonna stick forever.
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't.
Yeah.
If it goes public that you jumped over some urinals, everyone's gonna call you dude.
It was a small jump, but the car was fine. We were able to race the next day, and that's what really matters.
And this was at Road Atlanta, right?
Yes, it was at Road Atlanta.
Yeah. So for the Lucky Dog drivers and racers and crew and everything, the connection with AOA is there's a connection there with Lucky Dog and with Gino Manley, who's is good friends with James Marcellana of Chill Out, who's one of our sponsors. So there's kind of a connection there, and there'll be AOA is bringing a few cars to our Charlotte event in August. So it's kind of cool that you're driving over there with them. And Gino's famous for his two-wheel Mazda 2 at Charlotte, and everything else is on two wheels. So, but yeah. Where did you guys get your start in racing? Leo, where did you start?
It was with NASA. Everybody, I just worked my way up to HPDE. I did get my provisional SCCA license, and I got involved with NASA competition. 2017, I did take a regional win. And then from there, I wanted something more. I didn't want to do more sprint racing. I'm actually retiring that car, and that's when we started building our endurance cars.
Cool. What about this go-kart behind you?
Yeah, so that's actually my daughter's kart. So my daughter, and then there's one further back, which is my son. But unfortunately, the Las Vegas Motor Speedway closed the local karting track about a year ago. So as of right now, they've lost their skill set, unfortunately.
Yeah. Where's the closest place you can go-karting? Like, what's the closest track that isn't like a temporary setup?
Yeah. So for a while there, we could go to Apple Valley, but that's really kind of turned into a drift track. The asphalt's all torn up. It's just not feasible for something. The chassis doesn't have suspension on it. So the closest thing that we have now is Willow Springs.
Yeah, cool. Jason, you're only 20, right? And,
yeah, 20.
And you have more racing experience than probably both of us combined, but or seat time anyways. So where did you start, and how old were you?
I actually started go-karts when I was 9 years old, and I worked my way through that. I won 6 championships before getting the opportunity to race Formula Ford, and then I took Formula Ford to F2000, and that's how I got to endurance cars. Just did the open wheel route pretty high up, and then decided to transfer over to race some endurance cars.
Cool. Why don't you tell the story about? I think it was at Willow Springs where somebody just told you to get a car. And
yeah, that was a lot of fun. I was racing Formula Ford at the time, and we're actually filming a video with Colin Pierce. He's a a video producer for a lot of rap videos for like guys like Snoop Dogg and stuff, but he wanted to do a racing video, so he asked our team if he could come out and film. And the day we decided to do it for 2 days. One day was going to be filming, the day before just going to be practicing. And there was a couple of guys with 2 Formula Atlantic cars, and they it was kind of more towards the end of the day, they came up and asked me if I wanted to drive their car, and I didn't think they were serious at all, because that was a very, very expensive car, completely pristine 1970s Formula Atlantic car, all original parts on it. It looked fantastic. It was a very well put together car. And then they're like, "No, we're serious. You should jump in and see what you can do with the car." So I was able to drive both. They had 2 of them there. It was 2 best friends. So I got to drive both of them. And I ran to grab my helmet. My dad's like, "Where are you going? We're done with our car." I was like, "I'm going to go drive these guys." And he didn't think I was serious. And he saw me jump in and take off in it. And it was a really fun experience. I really enjoyed it a lot. It was very different, especially I was 16 at the time. So It was not something I was expecting to get to do.
I've never driven an open wheel car, but I've always heard that it's hard to get past that, where you're not only relying on the tires for adhesion, like once you get into the aero, what is that like? Like, can you explain that, what it's like to go from where you're using the tires only and maybe a little bit of wing to the point where, you know, if any of the aero fails on the car doesn't have enough grip from the tires to go through a corner. What does that feel like?
Oh yeah, well, a lot of it a lot of it is just dealing with the different speeds that everything's at, because you'll have different grip levels depending on how fast you're actually going. So in a high-speed corner, you'll have a lot more grip because you have more wind pushing on the wings, pushing the car down.
Right.
And so you kind of have to be gauging the car depending on what situation you're in. So if you're in a high-speed corner, you have to trust that there's a lot more downforce on it. If you're in a low-speed section, you got to know that you're not going to have nearly as much grip as you had before. And the big thing that I really got from it was how you actually apply the brake pressure and how you bleed it off very quickly. Because when you first press the brake, if you're doing 140 miles an hour, you have a lot more downforce. So you could use 800 foot-pounds of brake just straight away. But then as the car slows down, you have to be quickly releasing the brake pedal. So having your brake trace coming off quickly, because you'll have a lockup in the middle of it if you keep the same pressure the whole thing. So it's really trying to get the feel of how the downforce is actually affecting the car and how your speed is affecting how much downforce you have. So a lot of it is in the braking alone, is just immediately forceful as hard as you can on the brake and then smoothly trailing it off. Whereas in an endurance car, you keep a fairly similar brake pressure from the beginning of the brake zone to the end as you start bleeding it off to trailbrake the car in.
Right. And what about, like, have you, what are the differences you find? Like, do you find it hard to go back and forth between a car that's completely manual, where you don't have any electronic aids, no traction control, no ABS, to like newer cars where they do have those aids? Is there, like, do you find that difficult going back and forth, or
I don't find it difficult going back and forth, but there was definitely a major learning curve getting into cars that have stability control, traction control that kind of assist you in doing. And a lot of times they limit you more than they assist you. But trying to be able to drive those. I work at a driving school, Exotics Racing, and we drive the cars with traction control and not in the full off mode on all of it. We have this traction control and stability control on. So when you yourself drive the car, you have to leave it on just like the customers do. And you'll have to drive around it. So like the big thing is in those kind of cars, you don't want to have a lot of steering input at the exits of a corner, because that's the big thing that triggers the traction control. So learning to unwind the wheel as quick as possible just to get the power down was a big learning curve for me. That's one I struggled with for a long time. But more as you, like for the endurance cars I drive, me and Leo, we don't run with traction control or stability control on. And AOA, we don't run with stability control or traction control either. So for those ones, it's pretty easy. But driving high-end sports cars are the ones you have to deal with it a lot more.
Yeah. So that kind of leads into what you're working up to now. What we can talk about it a little bit, I guess. What you did earlier this year and what you're looking to do coming up in the next, I don't know, year.
Yeah, it's pending sponsorship, obviously. I'm trying to doing an IMSA series next year, and working really hard to get the financing to be able to do it. I want to do it with Compass Racing and the McLaren, but we're just working really hard. We're trying to get all the financing there to do the series. But yeah,
it's one thing that about racing that a lot of people don't know is that you can have all the talent in the world, but you got to have financial backing the higher you go up in racing to be able to bring that to the team, and that's valuable to them as well. So, yeah. Leo, what? Tell us a little bit more about Eurotek. Like, what else do you guys do there?
Yeah, so the company's almost 12 years old. We're not a fly-by-night. We started as a performance-only shop. We focused on APR software for Audi, Volkswagen, active AutoWorks software for BMWs, Dynon as a backup because it's a little more mild-mannered than active. And from there, the growth of the business, we had to offer more services. So we went in and offering full service and repair, which is really where it's what comes in to keep the store alive, to keep our staff alive. But racing is something I've always had a passion for. I don't think I was very clear in the past when I had said that where my experience was, but I did back many years with autocrossing and more mild-mannered forms of racing. And so that was always in me. And then I grew the business to the point where we were able to get more involved with racing outside of just sprint racing. And so now here we are building race cars, we're managing race cars, and we're running these arrive and drive programs for our drivers, where they're racing in our cars for a whole season. So we have our agreement, and we have a schedule that we all follow, and it's worked out great so far.
So why do you guys like racing at Lucky Dog? I know you had your first race at Buttonwillow. You're planning to come back at Chuckwalla. I know you were looking forward to a Laguna race in the summer, but that's not going to happen. What do you guys, what as a new team, what enticed you to come to Lucky Dog, and why do you want to come back?
So, you know, it's funny, Jason and I were talking, JR and I were talking about that quite a bit, right as we're out at Buttonwillow. The very first thing that points out to me is what I call the store smell. Okay. It's the culture at Lucky Dog. It didn't seem like there was any cockiness. You put on my rules, or it's the highway type of thing. Even Kathy was very open to suggestions and to just keeping us involved with racing. The maturity of the drivers, that was a big one, right, Jason?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Driving on the track with other cars, everyone was very, very respectful. The drivers were aggressive, but you weren't put in nearly as bad of positions that have been in other racing series with drivers who were patient, going for gaps that were smart, and not a lot of times you get put into just situations that two guys trying to go for, like if there was occasions where there's a battle going on behind us, the guys would be patient and find a good hole to go through and not wait and not dive bomb or anything like that. So to me, it felt like a lot more comfortable, safer racing environment than I've seen in other racing series. And that's one thing I really enjoyed about racing with you guys.
Cool.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Awesome. So Chuckwalla, you're going to bring a new car. Talk about that car. I don't know if we might have touched on it a little bit, but you're building a new car, or it's built, and you tested it once so far.
Yeah. We've tested it. Yeah, we've tested it twice. We did a original preliminary test at Chuckwalla, found some areas of improvement in the suspension and the settings of the car. We made some more improvements on that. Took it to the streets. At the streets 2 weeks ago, we had a fair number of our drivers in the car. Every one of them, there was also Chuckwalla. They were very responsive to the adjustments we made. The car seems pretty prepped and ready to go. We're just making some small finishing touches. It's a Spec E46 BMW, 2-spec rule, down to the suspension, no deviation. And the reason we want to do that is I want my drivers to become acclimated and comfortable with this car, because the goal is to race this car in other series as well, such as maybe the NASA Enduro series. And so we want our drivers to know the product, know the car very well. And so now that we've got it dialed in, they're going to have a full year under their belt with this car.
Cool. So why don't we talk about Buttonwillow? You guys experienced there. You talked about how you ran into the night, and then because you ran the you know where I'm going with this. So there was a point somewhere in the middle of the night or not the middle of the night, because we didn't run overnight, but we ran till like midnight or whatever. But you guys did the 17-hour. And tell me about this problem you guys had.
So the car was broken, as you know. The car was down on power, but the only way we were going to have a chance to somehow get back up on class was to be out there longer than anybody else. But the problem we also suddenly started encountering was that the car kept blowing its taillights, or taillight fuse. So about every second lap, you guys were black flagging us. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, you're doing it because the only light you have is the car's lights. It was pretty much complete darkness. And so we were getting black flagged about every 2 laps. And all we had time to do was short repairs. So at one point, we ran a jumper from one taillight assembly to the other. That got us a few more laps, and then that failed. And then we just kept replacing fuses. Well, at the end, we ran out of fuses. So we were just stealing fuses from other controls in the car. One of them happened to be the electric fuel pump. So, in fact, if I recall correctly, it was JR that was in the car during that time. He jumps in the car and he makes it all the way to pit exit before the car dies. And so that was it for me. I said, you know what, guys? We need time to figure out what's going on with this car. I think we're done for the night. We're going to continue tomorrow. We're going to cool off, figure out what's going on with this car.
Yeah, huh?
I think there's a little more to the story. I think Jason,
there's a little more.
We'll talk a little more about what really went down there.
So no, that's what went down, except that what I omitted was that Jason decides to come and join us, not JR, but the other Jason, and he's got a more level head on himself than I do. And he decides to figure out where the problem was, and he found a short in the system, and we fixed it, and we were back on track. Sorry, Jason.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah. So I always want to see teams on track, and Volkswagen. I have a Volkswagen shop outside of Lucky Dog, and so I thought I could lend a hand and came in the garage there. But the reason why I tell the story is, well, two reasons. The reason why the short happened was actually from contact on track, because your bumper connected with somebody else a little bit, and but the main reason was because of the atmosphere in your guys' paddock and pit area. And I came in there. You guys had a garage at Button Willow, so at least you had light and stuff like that. But I came in there, and you had the whole family was there, and somebody's grandma was there.
Yes.
It's like 11 o'clock at night, and is that your grandma, Leo, or who's grandma?
Well, it's actually my wife's mom. So not my grandma, but close enough.
Okay. Yeah. So it's like 11 o'clock at night, and they got the whole family cheering them on back on track, and yeah, it was a cool thing to see the car go back out, and then you guys kept running to the end of we did a combined race, so you guys came off track and then went back in the morning and then continued and just got passed on the last lap, I think, of the last lap of the race and ended up 4th place. So it was pretty good showing for your first time out at Lucky Dog. So I know that the diesel Jetta threw a lot of people for we were getting calls on the radio. This car is smoking and it needs to come off track, and you know that you'd roll coal down the front straight. So, but no, it's cool. It was cool. So. Yeah,
the car, unfortunately, we got a little let down on the car early on. The car's been a lot more solid than that. And it's just, it comes with racing. Sometimes you have great weekends. Sometimes you don't have the best of weekends, but we certainly made the best of it. We still had fun. Our drivers still very much enjoyed being in the car. And we put the best we could, even though the car was down at least 50% power. And we'll take the 4th, absolutely. We'll take 4th place position all day long. We do have a lot of history with that, with the car rolling a little bit of coal and people getting pissed off. In fact, we were testing once at Spring Mountain, JR in the car again. But we were testing during a Porsche Club event, a PCA, because that's all we had at the time. We needed to get this car on track and do some testing. So we went out on a PCA event, and at Spring Mountain, it's a clubhouse. So you've got members that drive open wheel cars. And Jason goes and passes a Radical. Yes, the Radical was passed up by a TDI 1.9, and it pissed him off because he got passed up and he got rolled on. And so he goes in an exit, and he's ranting and raving with the safety crew that, this jet is unsafe. Nothing unsafe was done about it with the passing. And so we had to explain to them it was a diesel, and they said, hey, in the future, maybe don't pass them. Isn't that what they told you, Jason?
Yeah, they told me there's specific passing zones, and I've never actually done. That was my first ever track day, and it was actually my first time ever in a sports car with doors on it. I've only done open wheel cars at that point, and just going out there, it was like my first 5 laps, and this Radical was just cruising around, and I was trying to get testing done on the car, and we had a program on to run and see how the tires wear out. So staying behind a guy who's just running 50% of that car's pace isn't going to help us at all. So I went for a pass in a passing zone, and they kind of told us in future, like, try to wait for them to point you by for an overtake like that, and then also try not to pass a guy who's in a lot nicer car. And after I made the pass, I immediately cut over across him to get back on the driving line, and he said that smoke got into him and it made him feel nauseous, and he was had a headache. He just had a billion excuses for why he got passed by that car. But it wasn't really about anything that our team did. It was more that he just got passed by a Volkswagen Jetta in an actual race car, in like a very legitimate Radical race car, which he should not have been passed by at any point in that event.
Right. So somebody asked a question here. They asked, is the X-Plex gone? What is that? Do you know what that is, X-Plex?
I believe they're talking about the Xplex go-kart track, and I don't quote me on this exactly, but from what I've heard, that the government went and bought that go-kart track, and they ended up so the go-kart track had to close, and what the government was going to try to do was build a helicopter pad, I believe. Okay. And people were sneaking into Xplex and driving their go-karts on it while after the property was bought. So they actually cracked a lot of the surface of it down, so they broke apart the track so that it's undrivable for go-karts. Okay. And they haven't done anything since with it, so I believe it's just going to remain dormant for the rest of the life, which is very unfortunate. It was an awesome go-kart track. I actually never got a race there. I first started racing in 2010, and I believe that was the year Xplex was bought by the government.
Okay.
So I was never able to drive it, but everyone talks about how great the track was.
Cool. Yeah, so somebody asked about my background, my virtual background, and it's Area 27 up in BC, and we're going there in October. It's a members-only track, similar to Thermal Club that's in California, but we're going to be the first sanctioned event ever on this track. It was featured in one of the episodes of the Amazon show that came after Top Gear. I can't remember the name with Jeremy Clarkson and
the Grand Tour.
Grand Tour, yeah. Grand Tour, yeah. So it was filmed. They had where they were testing SUVs on that track, and there was a BMW that broke down, and yeah. So that's my background. But yeah. So the other thing I was going to ask you guys is about like what are your favorite tracks to drive? Like.
Yeah, for me, Laguna Seca is still a favorite. It's not very technical, but it's got a lot of history. It gives me goosebumps when I'm there at 5:30 in the morning, and you got the fog rolling over the track. One of my favorite tracks has quickly become Buttonwillow. I've raced Buttonwillow so many times, and maybe that's why it's a favorite. I feel extremely confident in that track. I would call it my home track over Spring Mountain. So for me, those are my favorites. Now, when I do sim racing, I've gone to tracks I haven't been to in real life. Sebring. Yeah. I like Sebring. I'd like to participate in Sebring in real life. That's a good one for me.
Cool.
Yeah, my favorites. I love Laguna Seca. That's such a fun track. It's very smooth. It has a really nice surface to it. All the corners are high speed, and that's what I like doing. It's just really high speed corners with cars. And that's one thing about Laguna Seca. Most of them, except for the two hairpins, are very high-speed corners. So it's a fun track. I also like Willow Springs a lot. The only thing I don't like about Willow Springs is pretty hard on tires. So it does it does cost a lot more to race at Willow Springs than other tracks. But it's a lot of fun. Very high-speed track. And then I'd say my third favorite track's Road Atlanta. That track's a lot of fun. I love hitting the curbs there because you can hit them pretty hard with the car. It doesn't upset them. It just kind of it's really weird because you feel like the car gets bounced a lot on that track, but it doesn't really affect the car's grip level at all when you do it. So you can hit curbs at a pretty hard. You put all four tires over them, and it doesn't affect the car's balance too much. It's not much risk.
Yeah.
But I love that track. I remember the first time ever coming down the hill was actually I think it was a Chevy Impala rental car that they let us take out down there. So my first time coming down the hill, I didn't know. I watched videos on the track, but it really doesn't do you justice. You're down the straightaway, and then you see this crest coming down was just an amazing. It was for the first, I'd say probably day of driving it was scary to do. And I know it sounds weird because it's more of a straightaway. It's easy to do flat out, but it's just a really sketchy thing to do because you see this massive drop, similar to going down the corkscrew, but just a lot quicker.
Right. Yeah.
That was a fun track.
The faster the car, the scarier that corner is, and the scarier turn one is at Road Atlanta. I'd say that's high on my list of tracks I haven't been to, but raced in the sim that love that track, Road Atlanta.
You guys are doing that tomorrow too.
What's that?
Tomorrow's Road Atlanta, right? For the sim. Lucky Dog Sims Racing League, isn't that at Road Atlanta tomorrow?
Road America tomorrow.
Oh, Road America tomorrow. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Road Atlanta coming up though. Yeah. JR, have you raced at Barber?
At Barber, yes. I love Barber is another really fun track. It's a fairly low speed track. It's really technical. It's definitely, I really enjoy any track I go on. I've never been to a track where I was like, man, I didn't have fun out there.
Right.
Like every track I've ever been to, I've had a great time, from Spring Mountain to Barber. Yeah, just anything I go to, I enjoy. But yeah, Barber is a fun track. Really, really nice facility, and the track's incredibly smooth, which is another thing I like about it. Really easy on the tires.
Yeah, yeah, it's fun. We last year we went to Utah for the first time, and a lot of people said, flat, there's no elevation, it's not that fun. That track is very technical, and every corner is different decreasing radius, or there's like a triple apex on the long track, and everybody that raced there last year said that was their favorite track of the year event. So it's kind of funny how you said Button Willow, Leo. It's also another flat track that pretty flat, but there's a couple spots there where if you're not accurate, like Phil Hill, you can go way off going over there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's Button Willow's got a lot of. You could take many approaches to many of the turns of Button Willow and get a good result or get a horrible result. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I really enjoy Button Willow. I've tried so many different entries and exits, and I feel very confident about that track. And for that reason, it's probably very close to be my favorite track.
Cool. Yeah. So what's your favorite car that you've driven on track?
For me?
Oh, yeah. Sure, both of you.
Yeah, I think Jason's got more experience than that. JR's got more experience than that. I mean, my favorite car today would be my sprint car. It's an Audi S4. That car is a blast, and it's fast, very, very fast. But Jason, that's his job. So,
well, I mean, I have my team owner online here, and I don't want to upset the apple cart, so I'm gonna have to go with the Volkswagen Jetta TDI car as probably the best car I've ever driven on track. I got Leo here, and if I don't do that, I'll get in trouble. So,
man, that's the perfect answer to move up in racing. Right?
Well done.
Super happy.
Well
this
done.
is how I'm gonna maintain my starting position at Eurotek Racing. I always say the Jetta's the best car.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. What do you guys drive for your personal, like, daily drivers? Anything special?
My daily is a Ram 3500, but I am in a market for a Lime Rock Edition M3. I want that to be my new daily.
Cool.
So my daily driver is actually a wide body NA Miata. So that's what I drive around town. Which I can already tell Leo's laughing at me for that.
It actually is a really good looking car, but
it's a nice Miata. And the best part about it doesn't look. Oh, I'll let you talk, Leo. Sorry about that.
Sorry, you can go ahead. It's your car. You could speak. It's fine.
No, it's not an ugly car. And the best part about it is it doesn't look like a Miata. That's kind of the main thing about it. Was I was like, you know what? I don't think I'll get too made fun of, because unless you actually kind of know a lot about cars, it's harder to tell, because the body kit really just kind of hides a lot of it. And I honestly, I got a really good deal on it too. So it was too hard to pass up on for me. And I really needed a car immediately when I was trying to buy it.
So for me, the funny part is that you've got JR, who's, I mean, you're like a pro driver, right? And you're 20 years old. So the 20-year-old in you bought this car, even though it does not have the handling capabilities of what a Miata should have. You, of all people, know this, yet that's your daily. That's the funny part about this.
Oh no, it's definitely not. It's not it's a fun car to drive. Kind of the setup on it right now, it has a really soft front end and then a really stiff rear end. So it does drift quite a bit, even at normal speeds. You feel the rear end sliding all the time. It's a fun car to drive, but it's definitely not one you'd expect a pro driver to pick up.
Right.
But
right.
Like I said, I got it for super cheap when I bought it.
Jared, tell me a little bit about your dad, because he's a big part of your racing life, and I wish he was on the call with us, but he was busy tonight. Tell us a little bit about him.
Oh God, my dad's been he's been so supportive of me for ever since I was a little kid starting in go-karts. He's always supported my dreams. Even, and like anyone will tell you, when I first started go-karts, I wasn't very good at all. It took me like 3 months to do a session without spinning out. And my dad supported me through that really, really rough stage of initial karting. And he had to work incredibly hard on fixing my car anytime stuff would happen. And me and him, we ran it was solely him working on my car for the first 5 years. And we won 4 championships throughout it, just him working on alone. And he's put so many hours into helping me progress as a driver and as a person. And like literally, I owe all of my success to just him supporting me, which is it's really good to have a father, and same with my mom, both of them supporting me so much throughout my racing career. And I'm really, really, really thankful for having them.
Yeah, he's an incredible guy. I know we got to talk a little bit when I was down in Vegas there, and at Button Willow as well. But I know there's some news coming up, but I can't talk about it. But we'll have him back on to talk about that stuff later. But I guess we'll move on to, do you guys remember your first win?
I guess I'll go with Leo on this one. I know he has a regional win he was telling me about. I think you should talk about that, Leo.
Is that what we're talking about? Or we're talking about as Eurotek Racing?
Well, you could talk about both.
Okay, yeah. So in 2018, I took the regional win in NASA, Southern California. That was the one time and only time I raced for the whole year with NASA. After that, I started transitioning over to endurance racing. So that was in my sprint car, in my Audi S4. Yeah, it was something I'm proud of, but I wanted more, and I think that's why we're in endurance racing. So in terms of endurance racing with Eurotek Racing, we haven't yet taken a win. We've taken top finishes. We haven't yet taken a win, but that day's coming. That's for sure.
I'm calling it. Willow Springs is going to be our first win with Eurotek Racing. So I'm calling it right now.
There you go.
God, my first win, I'd probably go with my first F2000 win, which was at Laguna Seca. And that was it was a very weird weekend because we had an F2000 racing. You have to run the same set of tires for the first race qualifying, the second race qualifying, and the first race and the second race. So you use a set of tires for a really long time, and that's kind of how my first win came about, was just managing the tire wear. And it was at Laguna Seca. I was starting third position on the second race, and I kept my tires in pretty good shape throughout the weekend. Where the two guys who ended up finishing first and second, they had lots of lockups ahead of me, and I kind of knew that they were going to have issues from that. And I was able to go in, and from turn one, I was able to. I actually lost the position, dropped back to fourth, and then crawled my way back through individually, overtaking each car, and battled with the leader for what felt like ages. It was like 5 or 6 laps, and I ended up getting ahead of him and holding him off to the very end. And it was probably the longest 45 minutes of my life. It was incredibly long, lots of pressure, especially having him directly behind me. And we were both running for the championship too, so to stay in championship contention, I had to finish ahead of him. The year I won my first F2000 championship, so lots of pressure was on that weekend, and it was good. We came out ahead, and I can't thank the DFR team enough for supporting me through that weekend.
That's crazy. 2 qualifyings and 2 races on the same set of tires.
Yeah, and they're not short races either. They're 45 minutes long, so you manage these tires for just forever. And at the very end, you're driving on just like, I think our lap times were literally 3 seconds off by the second race because they were that worn out from this. And it was a really soft compound. It was an Avon tire, and they're incredibly fast tires, but they wear out really bad. And then there's also lots of punctures happening where drivers would have the sidewall cut, and you'd fly off track from it, because when you lose a tire in those cars, it's detrimental. The whole car, you lose all the ground effect from the rear diffuser, and then just not having any. And it was always the front tires. No one ever lost a rear tire, so it was definitely from how much input you could do, because they were a bias ply tire, so you're able to use like 30 degrees more steering angle than a Pirelli, which really was kind of what we all think was actually causing that issue, was just from the sidewall tearing on them. So that was another thing that was happening throughout the season. But yeah, it was a crazy weekend to have. Lots of stressful situations throughout it.
Yeah. So what about what would you guys say to teams that are out there that haven't come to Lucky Dog, that are either running in Lemons or running in Champ Car or haven't run anything yet? They just want to get into racing. What would you tell them?
I would say Lucky Dog is a really, really good series to race in. I don't think you have there's not, like, I've ran in the other ones, and they're all very competitive. They'll do a good job of running it. But one thing you guys do is your staff is really, really kind from when you register to when you leave. And you guys always check in with the teams that are going. I mean, you helped us finish a race, which I've never in my life had a race steward come and help fix our car in the middle of a race weekend, and you guys just put on an awesome event. I would absolutely recommend coming checking out Lucky Dog Racing.
Cool. Leo?
Yeah, what he said is absolutely true. Now, granted, I'm not taking anything away from Lemons or Champ Car. They're in many ways they're all in their own classes, right? So you got Lemons that isn't the same as Lucky Dog. Our Jetta is a prime example of that. It's not a Lemons car. It's a lot more of a Lucky Dog car. So, and the same thing goes with Champ Car. So I prefer Lucky Dog. That's where we're leaning now. But at the same token, if you could do 2 or 3 of those, go for it. Otherwise, if you can only pick one of the series, Lucky Dog would be my top choice.
I didn't pay you to say that either. and like, was all of your team that came out, had they all driven on track before, or was there anybody that was new?
No. So part of our Arrive and Drive program, and I'm so glad you asked this. Part of our Arrive and Drive program is we do developmental work with our drivers. We start them at the sim. We graduate them and put them in a front-wheel drive car. And so with regard to Button Willow, for example, 2 of those drivers had no prior experience. They had experience in autocross, they had experience on a sim, but they had no experience racing wheel to wheel. So this gave them an option to get there. Now, of course, we got them up to there. We didn't just throw them behind the wheel and expect them to perform very well, but they did great.
Yeah. So the series is open to whether you're a pro racer or almost pro racer, all the way down to a brand new person that is just wants to get into racing and doesn't even know if they like it yet. That's one of the things that Lucky Dog, we try and balance. That is, at the top end, the cars don't get too fast. The bottom end, we try and push the bottom end to keep up with other cars, but you can still come out there for your first time and feel safe and comfortable out there and get your legs, and then come back and move into a faster car or whatever you want to do. So, I think I'm trying to think of any other questions, but you guys have been awesome. I love talking to you guys and meeting you guys at Button Willow, and I look forward to you guys coming back and racing at Chuckwalla with us. I wish you were coming to Willow Springs on the Monday, but it's some people still have to work. Right? So,
yeah, I wish we could be there, but you're gonna have a great time, and we'll definitely see you at the next one.
Yeah, and we want to keep pushing. If there's any teams out there or any people out there in Vegas, reach out to Leo or Jason and talk to them. And we're trying to get that market, open up. I know there's cars around there, but a lot of them haven't raced in a long time. But we've got tracks in Arizona, tracks in Vegas area, Spring Mountain, that we can look at bringing events to if we can find some more people. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd love to help anybody that's trying to get back into racing or get into racing. Someone that's got a car that's in their garage and wants to turn it into a race car. Even if they don't want our services, I'd be happy to answer any of the questions that they may have. At the end of the day, there's a lot of experience within myself and my team with racing. And we can certainly send them in the right direction if they don't want to use our help, or we can be there to help them.
Cool. So I got one more question here. I was going to let you guys go, but somebody just asked a question. So now I got to answer it. All right, now I got to ask you. I got to see if I can find it here. So it's from somebody named Mark. Why is it disappearing? He talks about, I think it's singing love songs at Streets of Willow.
Oh, geez, that was actually me and my teammate Enzo who did that. We went out and we're taking out. I got this rental. I brought a rental car to the track, and it happened to be a Mustang, and I actually wanted to try to drive it on the track. So I don't know if you guys have checked this video out, but I had my camera running, and like I had the radio on because it was right after went to get gas in the car, and like this total like just dumb love song came on. So I like cranked it up as loud as like pretty loud for the car, and I made Enzo listen to it, and I put it up on YouTube. So if you guys want to watch me and Enzo drive a Ford Mustang rental car, it's like literally as hard as we could out there with love music in the background. Please go check that video out.
I'm seeing if there's any more. This seems like a lot of questions. Oh, it was Mark Lalama that asked that question.
That'd be Enzo's dad. That's
okay,
probably
okay.
He's probably. I don't know if he knew that we did that until then.
That's funny. So then I got come to the Pacific Northwest. You guys got to come up there, race up there. Whether you bring the Jetta or just come up, we'll find you a seat to drive. But yeah, that's definitely,
That would be awesome.
got to come up there.
That would be awesome.
Oh, Kathy said Buttonwillow favorite track because I run control in the middle of the night with crazy turn workers. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I'm just looking to see if there's any more. Everyone says your enthusiasm for racing is awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. We really appreciate it. You know, this is definitely one of those sports you do out of passion. You know, if it's so much work to be running a race team or even driving these racing series, and it's definitely something that if you're not passionate about it, it's nearly impossible to do.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate you guys coming and hanging out with me. Next week, we got the Motley Crew. It's a bunch of people from Canada and Montana. So you got Canada and Montana next week. We're calling it the Honda Boys, Socket Monkeys, Scrap Attack, and Team Jat from Vancouver, Washington. They'll be on next week. There should be a whole bunch of them, 8 or 10 of them on. Who knows what they're going to say, but I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me, and we'll see you at Chuckwalla.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. I
much.
really appreciate it.
Anytime.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, anytime. We'll see you in the sim racing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.